Willie has a video he put out 4 days ago that says, what do we not want to see in Classic Plus? What do we not want to see? And I mean, that seemed like a good video title, because it's like, I mean, everyone always talks about what they want to see, but what do you not want to see? For me, I want to see no flying. I want to see no transmog. I want to see I want to see the continent to stay Azeroth, so like no more expanding to like, oh, here's a new world we found called the Outlands. Like, look, I love TBC, but like I want to stay on Azeroth, right? I want to see no shop. I want to see no shop. I want to see what else do you guys not want to see? No flying. I already said that. I mean, there's some stuff that's just like absolutely not, right? So like let's see if we agree with some of this video.
Classic Plus comes up, the conversation goes rather the same way. People talk about the new stuff they want added mainly. The zones, the raids, the dungeons, maybe even a class and so on. And whilst all that stuff is interesting to talk about, it's also good to talk about maybe what shouldn't be in the game too. Because here's the thing about Classic Plus, it's not just going to be being made in a vacuum. Blizzard have 20 years of World of Warcraft history sitting there right in front of them in their toolbox, full of systems, mechanics and conveniences that have all worked for the game at some point in time. And it would be very easy for Blizzard to reach into that toolbox and to start picking out different pieces from different expansions that may fit into vanilla. But when you start to take away the friction, the inconvenience, the class imbalance and the slower pacing, you may not necessarily end up with a better version of vanilla. A lot of the time you just end up with a worse, lower budget version of whatever later expansion have been borrowed from. And I think that's going to be a tricky line to walk for Blizzard. So today, instead of going through what I'd love to see added into Classic Plus, I want to flip the script a bit and talk about a few things which I rather hope to not see. Not necessarily things that will be deal breakers for me, but things which I don't quite think would fit into a vanilla world.
So that's different than I thought it would be, because there's some, like, the things I talked about are deal breakers. Like, please no, like, don't do this. And there's some things that you could put in that are like, I wouldn't like it, but I would still like be okay with it. I'm trying to think, like flying is like, seriously bro, no, like don't do that. Like expanding the world is like, seriously do not do that. I'm trying to think of something that I would be like, I don't want that, but I also wouldn't care. Say they optimized flight paths, so the flight paths were a lot shorter. I don't know if I really like that, because I like the idea of pacing being slow, but if they did that, I wouldn't just like quit. I'd be like, you know. Arena is another one where like I don't think there should be arena in Classic Plus, because it breaks the immersion of the world. Like, you want to be out in the world, not sitting in a city queuing all day. You want to be dueling people in world PvPing and populating the world, not just sitting in an instance queuing for fictional points all day, right? I love arena, but it doesn't fit in Classic Plus in my opinion. But if they did it, would I just quit? No, it wouldn't like instantly make the game suck. It would be like a little detraction, right? So there's some things that like would detract, but I would still play. And there's some things that I'd be like, seriously, bro, you just ruined the whole thing.
I'm also going to be skipping over a few really obvious ones, which I don't really think need much explaining.
Someone said open world arenas like Gurubashi. Exactly. Like that would be cool. That's fine. Open world arenas, awesome. Instance, not so much.
Such as no flying or no looking for raid, things like that. What I want to focus on are changes that sound reasonable on the surface and are actually worth a bit of discussion. These are also in no particular order, and some of them are definitely going to be a bit more contentious than others. So with that said, let's start on this. But before we go on, a quick word from today's sponsor, Exit Lag. If high ping or unstable connections have ever cost you a raid pull or a PvP fight, Exit Lag is software built specifically to solve that.
I'm going to turn this down real quick. I actually did check out Exit Lag, I think when I was in college, because when I was in college, I lagged, and for some reason, Exit Lag fixed the lag or something, somehow, with when I connected it to WoW. So I'm not sponsored by Exit Lag, but I did use it 10 years ago or something, and anyway.
your connection in real time, as well as a diagnostic center so you can see exactly how your network is performing at any point. It's flexible too, you can just leave it on automatic and it runs silently on the background handling everything, or you can get into the settings yourself if you want more direct control over it. And right now ExitLag have a great offer on to get started. You can subscribe to the annual plan and you'll get 50% off, plus a 3-month of Discord Nitro Basic thrown in. So hit the link below or use my QR code to get a start and get ahead with ExitLag today. Many thanks to ExitLag for the sponsor. Let's get on back to...
Bro, I still don't understand QR codes on a screen. I just don't. Like, I get it when you put a QR code on a menu at a restaurant, or like you go up in the world and scan it. But when it's on a screen, just put a link. Like, what? Why not just put, you can click a link. You can, if you're on a screen, you can click a link. Why would you put a QR code on a screen? They're for like physical realm stuff, right? Like you could go up and scan it on a car or a IRL, but on a screen and put the link. Get with the times, old man. No, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this one, man. Why not just put a link? You could take a screenshot. I mean, you could take a screenshot of a link, technically, or you could click it. You could click a link. Wait, Xaryu's onto something? No, like, totally, bro. I think about this all the time with QR codes. Why not just put a link in the, like, what? QR codes on a screen makes no sense. Nah, you're right. Okay, we have some people agreeing with me. QR codes on a screen, it's just like, what are we doing? I feel like that's the boomer move. The boomer move is to use QR codes on a screen. I'm pretty sure. Just saying.
Wow. The first one is something that sounds small on paper, but is actually pretty big and changes how classes play completely, and that is Blizzard changing how stat scaling works. A good example here of...
I mean, if I was at a restaurant and they had a QR code menu, I would probably ask for the old physical one too. Anyway.
What I mean is the differences between rogue poisons in vanilla, or TBC for that matter, compared to Wrath. So in vanilla, rogue poisons, specifically damage ones, are, well, I mean, they're really bad, aren't they? They don't scale with attack power, they don't scale with spell power either, even though a lot of people think they used to, and they only scale with the bonus ranks of talent points in the assassination tree. However, at the start of Wrath, Blizzard made it so your poisons will begin to scale with your attack power instead, and suddenly Assassination Rogue became a really good spec overnight. In many ways, they fixed the problem, but it also erased a class identity which could have existed in favor of a simple solution. Hunters had something similar happen to them at the start of Wrath, so in vanilla you have abilities that do magic damage such as Arcane Shot, Volley, Serpent Sting, your fire traps, and so on. And these do scale with spell power in vanilla, but just really, really badly, as in it's kind of unplayably bad. And in Wrath, Blizzard made all these abilities scale with attack power instead, so you just build agility, get attack power, and it will give you tons of damage. But what if instead of that, the survival hunter tree was built around hunters wanting spell damage as their main damage dealing stat? It would create a whole new avenue for itemization and a new way to play this class. I also hope we don't see melee hunter. I mean, come on, this game...
Wait, isn't that something that he would want to see? Isn't this video supposed to be what he doesn't want to see? But anyway, I think that actually would be cool, but I'm biased because I'm a mage. So I remember back in the day, I don't even know what year this was, but there was an arcane shot hunter where you could stack spell power and like spam arcane shot, and the arcane shot would like do spell damage or whatever. And I always thought that was really cool. But I'm a mage main, so maybe that's why. So I actually really like that idea. I would maybe even play that idea. But anyway, this is what we want to not see, right?
It doesn't need more melee specs, does it? My concern for Classic Plus here is Blizzard is going to take the easy route and just say, make things scale with attack power or spell power where they make sense doing so, instead of keeping that vanilla itemization alive. And vanilla itemization is part of what makes the game interesting compared to other versions of WoW. This would introduce certain pieces of armor which are going to be very specifically good for one spec, but for example, if spell power hunter existed, they'd be sharing items with elemental shamans. If spell power rogue existed, they'll be sharing items with boomkins, so there is a bit of crossover, and sometimes your best armor isn't always the intended one too. All in all though, I hope Blizzard don't just go down the route of this stat now scales with this and makes it do damage. Next is about class balancing. So class balance in vanilla is bad, like it's...
So he wants scaling not to just be like so darn basic. Okay.
hilariously bad. Everyone who knows the game has ever played it, and it's very much something we just accept. And I think for Classic Plus, a lot of people are expecting Blizzard to rein in class balance a little bit and get numbers a bit closer across the board, which I agree with, but just not to the extent of what they do in retail. What I'm concerned is that Blizzard overdo it and try and tune things too much, to the point where everything is in a single-digit percentage number of one another. That level of balance would require constant tuning passes, frequent hotfixes, and the willingness to treat every spec as a fully realized competitive option, and that mindset just kind of doesn't really work in Classic that much, I don't think. It also tends...
What I really like about Classic, I think what Classic does really well is, even if a class isn't performing the highest on the meters, a lot of the time there's utility for that class. For example, in Molten Core, Warlocks are needed to banish on Gar, or just banish the ads. Like you want some locks, right? Like a Priest, obviously, like they're the best healers, but they also bring the buff. Same with Druid with the buff. Warriors, I mean, obviously Warriors are a little overtuned. Like I'm not arguing that, but like mages bring the AoE, even though the single target on a lot of bosses might suck in Molten Core because you can't go fire yet till later. I'm trying to think what other classes here. Like Pallies bring salvation, like come on. So like I would like balancing, of course, to be a little better, but at the same time, I love the idea that utility is strong enough to where those classes are still highly sought after. Like a Paladin with Salvation is a good example, or a Warlock with Banish. I'm trying to think what else. The only class that doesn't have great utilities are Rogue. You could kind of... I mean, the Rogues have good damage, though. And Expose is okay, too, right? I feel like maybe Rogue is kind of fine. I'm trying to think. Rogue might be a little on the weaker end. So maybe Rogue could even get a little bit of utility, if anything. But like you guys understand what I'm saying, right? If a class isn't actually the best on the meters, that can be okay if they bring utility elsewhere, and that's what makes Classic classic. It's like we still need a variety of classes.
To come with some side effects such as class homogenization, where every class is doing roughly the same thing and has a similar toolkit of abilities. What I love to see first is something in the middle where it's more gameplay first and then balance second. Fill out the very basic PvE rotations for specs that are bare bones. For example, most casters in the game just press a singular button at endgame. I don't think that's terribly engaging. We could use a little bit more there. All the same, this should be done slowly, because when you introduce something, you can't exactly just take it away again and say, oh my bad, that was a mistake. Better class balancing should absolutely be a thing, but getting everything right within a few percentage points of each other, I just don't really think it matters that much for class.
I agree. It doesn't need to be this retail, everything is doing within a certain percentage. It just needs to be like in the ballpark, and classes need to have utility. And I agree with rotations as well. Warlock rotation at endgame needs a couple extra buttons. Mage, same thing. Warrior feels good. A Rogue maybe could use an extra one. Pally Priest, I don't know. I think Pally needs some more. Yeah, I actually do kind of know. Pally does need some more. Here's the easy way to say it. Warrior is the gold standard. Warrior rotation is good in Classic. Every other class could probably just be bumped up to where Warrior is, rotation-wise, not DPS-wise. I mean, maybe DPS-wise too, but rotation-wise, in terms of how fun it is to play. You have Bloodthirst, you have Whirlwind. If you're on Horde, you're spamming Hamstring to get Whirlwind procs. If you have too much Rage, you're also using Heroic Strike to dump the Rage, right? You have Execute when you get to that phase. Like, it's not like that hard. It's not like a retail rotation, but it's like, it's enough to make you want to think and play the class. It's fun, right? It's just enough to be fun. Every other class we brought up to Warrior rotation-wise. Just maybe 2 to 4 buttons you're weaving in. You know? It's nice. It's nice.
Speaking about class balancing, I want to talk about another retail feature which was brought in Legion, and that is Mythic Plus, and this is probably one of the most successful retail WoW systems ever. The whole concept of Mythic Plus is that you're doing dungeons you've already done on an endlessly scaling difficulty level, so you can constantly push yourself, chase for the fastest times in the world, and upgrade your gear. It works great for retail where all classes have a wide toolkit of abilities, and it wouldn't work in Classic whatsoever for the exact same reason, because most of the classes in the game are kind of just, well, how can I put it, helpless. At the end of the day in retail, there's always going to be a gap between the best and worst performing specs and those specs that have the best synergy. But if you think getting into a key will be hard in retail, imagine getting into a key in Classic as Boomkin or a Rep Pally or Enhanced.
So here, like, I love Mythic Plus in retail. It's one of my favorite things about retail, to be honest. It's fun. But for Classic WoW, here's the problem. Not every class has AoE and not every class has mobility. So there would just be like a meta comp. And if you're like a Shadow Priest or a Rogue, you just couldn't play Mythic Plus in Classic Plus, right? You would just be like completely useless. And then what would happen is all the rogues would be like, I don't have AoE, I need to get buffed so to have some AoE. And that's what the forums are going to be filled with, is my class is not viable, I can't play it. And then Blizzard eventually gets forced to like, okay, well, let's add a little bit of AoE to everyone so that everyone can kind of play this game mode. That's what happened on retail. And then it becomes, okay, now everyone can play the game mode, but now every class is homogenized. Crap. Now our game doesn't feel good anymore. But everyone can play, but the game doesn't feel good anymore. So absolutely not. We saw it happen, the slow degradation of retail class design and the homogenization of it because of Mythic Plus, essentially. And I'm saying that as someone who loves it.
Or Elemental
and
or
we've
Shadow
seen this
Priest.
before.
Realistically, you'd end up with Dungeon Cleave comps, but just with endgame gear instead. You'd have groups with a bunch of mages AoEing everything down, or a group with 3 warriors, 2 healing on Horde with
Those
Wind
should be
Fury.
the only options,
On top of that, I don't think the timer system from Mythic Plus feels good for Classic either. It's really just not that type of game. Maybe there's another way Blizzard can keep dungeons alive, but Mythic Plus I really just don't think is it. The next one is going to be the first one I think a lot of people will disagree with. So you know how in Wrath Classic, when you get a mount, a toy, or a companion pet, you right click it and it goes into your collection tab. It was like that in Wrath Classic, at least. It didn't work like that in original Wrath. Well, not entirely. But anyway, there's something about the convenience part of it that just doesn't quite sit right with me for Classic. It's just too easy. It sounds stupid, but I'm gonna say it again, it's too convenient. For me, planning around your bags, managing your bank space, and actually deciding what you want.
So this is an interesting one. What they did in Season of Discovery was that the key ring became a toy storage. That is a great solution. It plays within the confines of Classic, which still, it doesn't feel like retail, but it still gives you a little bit of quality of life of like, okay, I have this key ring for toy items. It's a little bit of both. It's not just, here's infinite storage for this or not. It's like, okay, now you have some extra toy storage, right? I like that.
To take with you has always been part of the vanilla experience. It's a small part of the friction that exists within the game, and if everything was account-wide as well, you'd be able to summon things on alts who are lower level, where it wouldn't necessarily have made sense for them to have achieved that item or mount. However, I absolutely acknowledge that Blizzard are going to be introducing a bunch more stuff into the game, and they're going to need to come up with a solution here, because even at the moment it's really easy to fill up your bags and bank with loads of technically useless stuff but collectibles. Maybe the stables could get more slots, maybe there could be special bank tabs for pets, who knows, but the collection tab I just don't think's quite it. The next one is a cluster of changes which primarily are related to Wrath of the Lich King, and this is me saying I hope Blizzard don't speed things up just for the convenience factor. Things such as faster gathering, one-tap mining, mounts becoming available at lower levels, and even AoE looting are things which just speed up the experience in kind of an unnecessary way. There's one exception which I'll probably be okay with, and that's not being dismounted in water, but I don't think that's a terribly big deal. Just get better at jumping for the most part. But there's a reason Blizzard started to speed things up in the old world as they rolled out expansions, because Blizzard didn't want you to have to play through 100 hours of vanilla content and then 50 or 60 hours of TBC before you finally got onto Wrath of the Lich King. They wanted you in Northrend as soon as possible. Classic Plus should not have that pressure to catch up and to level. If people start asking, is it too late to play, or feeling as though they are too behind, Blizzard have just fallen into the same trap that they've experienced throughout 20 years of WoW development. A slow-paced game in a slow-paced world is fine for Classic Plus. The next thing I hope we don't see is a full transmog system, and I say a full transmog system deliberately, so give me a moment to explain myself.
I don't want any transmog.
Because full transmog allows you to do whatever you want with any of your armor pieces, including hiding them, and I think there's honestly something nice about looking at another player in a raid or a city and seeing what they've done based upon what they are wearing. You can see what raids they've done, what they've farmed, perhaps what legendaries they have, all those kind of things. Full transmog erases all of that information and replaces it with, well, just about whatever they fancy. And let's be honest, there are some truly obnoxious transmogs out there. I'm so thankful in Classic that I've never had to see a Tauren dressed up as Mario ever. And you know what? I want to keep it that way.
I agree with this. We talked about this yesterday with the Disneyfication of Warcraft in Angelica's video. And like, yeah, it's like there's some tone of like seriousness about the game when people are running around like this. It's like, I mean, it's kind of funny. It's cool. Like Mitch and I did the, like, I mean, we've done transmogs like this. It's funny, but it's like something about it. It's just like, wait a minute, what's actually going on here? You know, you lose the immersion.
However, that doesn't mean there's zero room for cosmetic systems here, potentially. I think there are better ways that Blizzard could let players express themselves without just opening the floodgates completely. Things such as weapon enchants, maybe capes, tabards, or even class-specific cosmetic rewards from completing certain things. Imagine hunters with a specific quiver or an ammo pouch, rogues get a belt with poisons and little knives on and stuff, or different totem appearances for shamans. Those type of cosmetic effects could be tied to achievements or quest lines rather than just some universal toggle anyone can access at any time. You can even do weapon attack animation overlays, though that's probably a bit much, but imagine if you're a troll hunter and your auto attacks and animations were you throwing axes instead of using a bow or something. Again, that might be too far, but I think that would look so cool. That way Blizzard would get a way to make these rewards feel rare and earned and something you actually have to go and do, rather than just opening up a menu and doing whatever you want. It keeps the ball in Blizzard's court and allows them to decide what you can get, rather than just you doing whatever you want. So hopefully that makes sense. Next up with Classic Plus, I think it's pretty safe to assume we're getting new zones, and probably new to mid-level zones and dungeons alongside that. And these new zones and dungeons naturally mean new ways to get experience, which is aside from what we already have. And that's fine and that's all good. What I'm hoping for is that Blizzard avoids stacking deliberate acceleration of the leveling experience on top of that, particularly at early levels. I think for the most part the journey from 1 to 30 is really good in Classic WoW. Things can slow down after that, particularly on the Alliance side, mind you. I've done it enough times to know. If they could pad out that mid-game experience just a little bit more than what we have at the moment, that would be good. But I'm not really looking for stacking experience buff, joyous.
I agree. I think 1 to 30 is peak Classic WoW. Like peak, especially on Alliance. Like 1 to 30 Alliance, Elwyn, Westfall, Redridge, Duskwood, Stranglethorn. Like, it literally peak Classic WoW. I do think it does get a little slow. I mean, 30 to 40 is kind of fun too, because you get new talents, you get your capstone talent at 40, and you get your mount at 40. But like 40 to like 44, 46, like in that range, it's just like, ugh. And then it gets fun towards the end, I think, right, too? But I agree, like, it could, an extra dungeon there, or like some extra stuff that kind of smooths it out, even just like an extra dungeon or a new zone, like, could be kind of cool, but...
journeys, heirlooms, any of that. Again, as I went over before, I think the game being slow-paced is just fine. Next is something that's existed since day one of vanilla, and that is called the hybrid tax. This is the idea that classes capable of filling multiple roles should deal less damage than classes who can only ever be good at one thing. The logic goes that a Shadow Priest or a Rat Pala has the option to fall back on healing, whilst a Mage or a Rogue doesn't, so the hybrid class's damage gets quietly lowered to compensate for that flexibility. And Blizzard have acknowledged this in the past as well, by the way. And in vanilla, the hybrid tax shows up all the time. And especially at endgame, you can see this tax in full force, because what kind of tier sets did Blizzard make for hybrids? That's right, only healing sets. I mean, come on, they knew what they were doing, surely. I'm not asking for every hybrid to suddenly get an interrupt, a defensive cooldown, an offensive cooldown, and mobility tool, just because other classes may have those things, or the homogenization of classes even. I'm asking for a baseline where any spec in the game could realistically be considered worthwhile for your raid slot, rather than what exists at the moment, which is the majority of the specs in the game are just not very good. The hybrid tax, I think, has to go. Next point will be a very unpopular one, I'm pretty...
I'm a little iffy on this one. I mean, I agree at a base level, but I want to be clear. Shadow Priests, to me, should do less damage, but their healing through Vampiric Embrace should be significant enough to be exciting and to bring utility in a unique way, to where not only your group feels good about it, but you feel good about it. Like, I just think this everyone has to deal a lot of damage isn't cool. It's like, yeah, well, what? That's just like, it's just damage, right? But when you, like, Classic WoW is all about utility. Like, what are you actually bringing to the table? But let's be honest, the utility from like the heal on the Vampiric Embrace kind of sucks. And like a Moonkin, it's like, what do you know? So like, if you're going to buff it, you could buff the damage a little, sure. But I would like to buff the utility to make it feel like you're bringing something cool and unique, right?
You sure, but I want to keep things faction specific, or I would like to see that at least. In original vanilla, paladins were alliance only and shamans were horde only. It was a choice that really made you pick your faction. Then TBC came around and both factions got access to both classes. And it's funny because in vanilla, alliance are typically seen as the easier or better raiding faction, and then the moment horde got paladins, they've been the better raiding faction for, you know, the rest of WoW's history. But I like how in vanilla you actually are made to choose a side and commit to it, because that is clearly what the original designers wanted, and it produced a far more varied game as a result. If anything, I'd like to see Classic Plus lean further into this kind of faction-specific identity rather than away from it. Imagine an undead exclusive Death Knight class or a Night Elf exclusive Demon Hunter variant for the Alliance. These would be heavily modified versions of these classes, mind you, but I know at least for me, I would reroll 2 new characters instantly if those existed. I think what's different between each faction keeps things interesting, and making a choice should be part of the game. Last but not least, I'm sure that Classic Plus ends up adding some new playable races at some point in time. Don't know what those races will end up being, but speculatively, a lot of people talk about High Elves for the Alliance and Goblins for the Horde. And at least for me on the Alliance side, I think the High Elves are essentially going to be Blood Elves with blue eyes. Now, this absolutely makes sense within the context of the game. However, that's just the Blood Elf model.
Every time I see that model, I think of like that guy years ago, and I can't remember what I said exactly. It was like I was doing that quest out in whatever zone it is, and I was like, oh wow, that's a cool looking Blood Elf. And then someone in my chat goes, that's not a Blood Elf, that's a High Elf. And I'm like, every time I see that model, I think of this guy. That's not a Blood Elf, Sar. It's a High Elf every time, man.
It's been the Blood Elf model since TBC in 2007 forever, and to suddenly just see that model running around Stormwind doesn't quite feel right. There are actually High Elf models within vanilla already, even though they look completely cursed, which could potentially be usable, but Blizzard would have to do a lot of work to fit armor on them. All the same, I just think adding Blood Elves in with blue eyes is a bit low effort, and I don't quite like it if I'm being honest. Equally, Goblins joining the Horde.
Dude, I might have a bad take here. I mean, let's be honest. This entire video, I've been chock full of good takes, right? Like every single thing I've said, very good take. This might be a bad take. I like elves. Elves are sick. I think they look cool. I'd play an elf.
Make no sense whatsoever within the vanilla timeline. When goblins actually were added to the Horde during Cataclysm, that happened because their home island of Kazan and the Lost Isles were essentially blown up in the starting zone experience. They ended up on Joritar and then they joined in with the Horde. That's one specific group of goblins making that choice. This hasn't happened in vanilla, and goblins are literally already the neutral faction. They are motivated by one singular thing in vanilla, money. Casting their lot with one faction or the other, with what we know about the game at the moment, just doesn't make sense. If they were to join the Horde, they would need some big lore bomb to justify that. But anyway, those are 10 things for me that I'm hoping we don't see when Classic Plus actually becomes real. What do you think though? Are there any big things I missed out on aside from the obvious ones? And do you actually disagree with any of these and think they would fit well in the game? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Very soon. Yo, Willie, thumbs up, man. Great video. I feel like I agree with a lot of the things that Willie says. I'm trying to think if I disagree like majorly, like pretty, like I feel like Willie and I think are on like the same wavelength for what we want. I think Guzu is also on the same wavelength. Every time I talk to Guzu, I'm like, Guzu, I feel like wants the exact game I want for Classic Plus. And Willie too. I mean, I think a lot of us are. And there's some people it's just like, what are you talking about, you know? But yeah, Willie, locked in and tiled. I like this guy. There it is, guys. What we not want, what we not want to see. What do we not want to see in Classic Plus? I don't know why I couldn't say that.